Hello everyone. This is the November 15th, and we are going to have 3 sessions on Avatamsaka Sūtra as our monthly study intensive. For those of you who have been following this lecture series by recording, you might have noticed there's a 3 months break between the previous lecture and then today's lecture. This is not a mistake. I took a few months of medical leave, so there was no study intensive or no other lecture series were offered during that time. But I am back, and then we are going to resume our programs as usual as of today. So I am going to pick up where we left off in August. So if you are somebody who's been missing some portion of that, we have already posted all of those lectures on the website, so you can always go back to previous lectures and then keep catching up with us. Okay. Now, chapter 10. Please open your textbook, and this is page 299. This chapter is titled as Bodhisattva asks for clarification. But I like to show you the original title. I'm going to open the shared screen. Okay, so I opened the shared screen. Oh, sorry, this is not the one. Okay. This one. So, this is the original title, Bosatsu, Bodhisattva, and it says Mon. The last chapter in Japanese. So Mon is asking, and then Myo is clarify. So this is asking for clarification. So therefore it is translated as Bodhisattva asks for clarification. But this Mon is actually from Mondō. So in another word, this chapter is in the form of Mondō, question and answer. For those of you who have been reading Avatamsaka Sūtra from the beginning, I find it very creative. Each chapter has its own different form to talk about Buddha Dharma and Buddha way. Instead of just speaking rather dryly, instead each scene has some sort of I don't know how to say that. It's a creative format. In some way, in some chapters, they use this imagery of the light. And in some chapter, they have decided to talk about how about let's focus on the first sermon by Gautama Buddha, which is a Four Noble Truth. So they have this particular format and theme, and they really stretch it into full explanation of Buddha Dharma and Buddha way. Now, this chapter 10 takes the form of Mondō. So to start with, I really like to show you where the Mondōs are. In this chapter, again, they utilize this theme of 10. So there will be 10 Mondōs. Oh, by the way, Mondō, just in case, Mon is question, literally, and Do is answer. So it's really Q&A, so to speak. In Zen tradition, I think when you hear for the first time the word Mondō, because of this, I don't know how to say that. I believe this is probably related with D.T. Suzuki being the first person who came to the United States and really started to Well, I don't like to use the word promote, but probably, he was the theologian from Rinzai school. So therefore, most of the people who first had a contact with the so-called Zen or Zen way of teaching are, familiar with the styles or format of Rinzai school utilizes in their teaching system. So when you hear the word Mondō, you sometimes visualizes this kind of a formatted, ritualistic, serious, ceremonial way of question and answer. What they usually do is they have some specific time and day, then they assemble those monks, and then teacher sits in front of the altar, and those people who like to ask the question kind of rushes in to get the seat. So there's a one-line seat, and then one after another, the first one would be the first person who took the first chair. It's like what's the English word? Like a melody chair, music chair. And then the people who didn't get these lines have to go back to their seat and then observe this whole ceremony. And the first person bows, official 3 bows, and then approaches to the teacher, sits down, usually in seiza position, and asks the question. It's usually just a one-liner question, and then teacher also gives one-liner question, answer. And it's so ceremonial, and most of the time it's staged and it's premeditated. So the conversation is usually something most of the people in the audience doesn't really understand. And very often they invite like tourists or visitors of the temple to join and observe this type of ceremonial way of question and answer. So when I speak with the people in America, particularly in Buddhist community, when I mention the word Mondō, they often think about that and they say, oh, no, we don't do those things. But that's not the origin of the Mondō. That's actually very specifically Rinzai way of studying. Mondō simply really means question and answer. And then what takes place is, most of those records of our ancestral records takes place in the monastic style. So people are living together, and then every day they have a contact, with their teacher or teachers. Multiple numbers of the teachers are also working and living together. And so therefore, there's a really, casual time you have a contact. And all day long, you're actually doing something, particularly working all day. So therefore, you may be working with your teacher or your senior, and then while you are working, you have some sort of a question, and you just casually address the question, and then casually, but of course, sincere answer, sincere question, and they respond. And sometimes those dialogues are so good, so therefore they talk about that, today I had this conversation with my teacher, and my teacher said this, isn't that good? And then the people said, yeah, that is very good, and remember that. And eventually they will write it down, and then it's going to be, handed down to century and century. Those are the type of the biography, so to speak, includes those question-answer moments. So I kind of like you to know this because in our school, Dogen school, Sōtō school, we don't have that tradition of that formalized, ritualistic, almost like staged ceremonial Mondō. But instead, yes, we do have lots of casual moments. We talk with our seniors and the teachers, and then sometimes those question answers are really, really, instructive and wonderful. I'd like to continue to talk about Mondō on and on today, because this is a very interesting subject. But to start with, please take a look at your textbook. In this particular chapter, chapter 10, there will be first 9 Mondos. In 9 Mondos, Mañjuśrī, I keep saying this in Japanese word. By the way, for those of you who also practice in Japan, Mañjuśrī is Monju in Japanese. Monju Bosatsu. So Monju Bosatsu is the teacher. So when teacher asks the question, it's a test. Mañjuśrī first tests those 9 other bodhisattvas. So he starts and he says, this and this and that, what do you think? And then bodhisattva has to answer. Most of the time, what happens as it, according to how it is recorded, if the teacher asks something and the student answers, and if teacher doesn't say anything, it's approval. Or if the question is given and if the answer from the student is not particularly sufficient, teacher is supposed to say something like very short returning word. So it gives the student yet another food to chew on later on. But anyway, this is very interesting because, this Avatamsaka Sūtra, remember, is a 4th to 5th century product. Now, inspired by this question and answer form, eventually it really goes into Chinese Zen era. And in Zen tradition, really start to have this almost like a formalized way of practice, and also all of the biography really focuses on this Mondō portion. So I find it very interesting to see the birth of that tradition here. And then last one, I think Mañjuśrī says something. So this is the format of this chapter 10. So there will be 10 question and answer, but the first 9 is the testing the students, and the last one is almost like a definitive presentation by Mañjuśrī. Those are, please take a look at your textbook. The first Mondō, Mondō number 1, takes place 299, page 299. And then Mondō 2, the reason why I'm numberizing this is, of course, number 1. I keep talking about Avatamsaka Sūtra utilizes this number 10 as a symbolic way of talking about. Number 10 in Buddhism is the symbol of perfection, because it's 10 is described as a roundness, completeness. And then Mondō number 2 takes place page 300. And then Mondō number 3, the question starts from the end of page 301. And then I'm also numberizing this because today we have a very limited time, and I don't think I will be able to run through all of the 10, but I like to pull out 4 Mondōs. So in that case, I can just say Mondō number such and such, and then you can pull out that from your pages. Mondō number 3 goes on to page 302. And then Mondō number 4 is 303, page 303. Mondō number 5, 304, page 304. And then Mondō 6, the main portion of the Mondō 6 is page 306, 306. And then Mondō number 7, page 307. Okay. This Mondō is very interesting, so I'm going to talk about this in detail later. Number 8, Mondō number 8 is page 308. Mondō 9 is 309, page 309. And then last word, Mañjuśrī is actually taking the question, and he says something. this is reversed Mondō, is the last one is page 311. Now, let me just read at the beginning so that you get the kind of feeling for the style. I'm going to start to read at the beginning of the chapter 10. A bodhisattva asks for clarification. I have to bring my textbook closer to me so I can see. At that time, Mañjuśrī Bodhisattva asked foremost enlightenment Bodhisattva, son of the Buddha, since the nature of mind is singular, why then does one observe that there are still many different distinctions in individual causes, such as going forth into the good destinies or into the wretched destinies, coming to have complete faculties or deficient faculties, taking on the same or different kinds of rebirth, becoming handsome or ugly, or experiencing differences in suffering or happiness? And why then does action not know mind? Why then does action not know mind, mind not know mind, feeling not know retribution, retribution not know feeling, mind not know feeling, feeling not know mind, cause not know condition, condition not know cause, cognition not know object, and object not know cognition. People always say Dogen's writing is very difficult to understanding, but I don't think Dogen is the only one. But if you start to get used to how Buddhist text talks about, you can kind of tell immediately. This is the question about, this is supposed to be one truth. But in this one truth, why do we have these things about, I feel happiness and I feel unhappiness. And there are some people who are beautiful, some people are not beautiful. How do you reconcile this sense of difference, sense of up and down, sense of far and near, etc., etc.? But anyway, this is the type of the question and answer. How do you answer this? If you are somebody, being asked such a questions. But anyway, I recently, by the way, maybe just in case, sometimes Buddhist text is very difficult to keep your attention to if you are not very familiar to what Buddhist, narrative goes. So at the beginning, I just want to give you a little bit of a clue. Mentioned earlier, Avatamsaka Sūtra, main theme, of course, it starts with the Buddha Dharma, but main theme is Buddha way, particularly how bodhisattva should live in our life. A bodhisattva in this case is, of course, Mahayana sense of bodhisattva. So therefore, we are talking about us, someone who was interested in Buddhist teachings and who really wishes to live in accordance with Buddha's teaching. How should we be living our life? And then in this particular chapter, in this particular question and answer, theme is really starting to illuminate the sense of vow. Vow is seigan. I mentioned this and explained fully in the previous lecture. And this is the, our teacher Okumura Roshi has one of his best-selling book is called Living by Vow. Living by Vow is a translation of Gansho. Live with this vow as a principle to, take us to the correct path to live our life. So, in another word, in the original language, this chapter main theme is Gansho, how we live with living by vow, this lifestyle of living by vow. But anyway, several months ago, I came to this idea. Why don't we actually do this Mondō in a very informal way, not like a Rinzai style way? Because I think one of the reasons is our group in New York City is not a monastic group. We don't really have a place to practice and live together all the time. So therefore, most of the time we're basically, meeting each other sporadically from time to time. Sometimes it's a Zenkai, sometimes it's a session, sometimes it's a lecture series. But we really don't have any interaction, opportunity to have interaction daily together with other Sangha members. So therefore, I started to miss that sense of having casual conversation with the seniors and students and my teachers and etc., which I often experience when I'm back in Japan and living in the temple and monasteries. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is, recently I'm paying attention to our lineage. There were some opportunities I had to keep revisiting our lineage chart. But at the same time, I don't do this in the United States because we really don't do full morning services in the United States. And I think even large Sōtō school Buddhist centers, including, I think the largest one is the San Francisco Zen Center. They don't really do the full version of morning service as Sōtō school in Japan does. Most of the smaller Zen centers don't really know this, but in the original style of Sōtō school's morning service, we recite our ancestors' name all the way through Gautama Buddha's to my own teacher. Did you know this? I think you do, but let me just open some text for you in case people who are listening to this or who will be listening to this don't really know this tradition. So in the morning service in Sōtō school, we start from Lotus Sutra. And then that's one portion, and then we do dedication. And then after that, there's another block, and then another block. And then it comes to the block of the morning service. We recite Sandokai, or Hokkyo Zanmai, or sometimes combined two of them together for some specific reason. And then after that, dedication goes to our appreciation to our ancestral teachers. The reason is both the Sandokai and also Hokkyo Zanmai were written by our ancestral teacher. So what we do is we start says, let me see. This echo translation is a little awkward, so I'm just going to do this. And then let's say Hokkyo Zanmai or Sandokai's recitation is over. Kokyo takes over and says, Aogi koine ga wakuba shinji, fushite shoukan o tareta mare jourai Sandokai Hokkyo Zanmai o fujusu, atsumuru tokoro no shikun wa, and then there's Bok. And you start to recite Vivashibutsu Dai Osho, Shikibutsu Dai Osho, etc., etc. And then goes into Shakyamuni Buddha. Then after that, these are historic people. The first seven, basically, not Shakyamuni Buddha, but the first six mythological figure. It's a symbolic way of talking about endless beginning of the beginning. Beginningless beginning of the time, so to speak. And then after that, this is supposed to be the historic people and who also handed down the correct teaching all the way down to us. And we every morning we recite this. Then sometimes I hit this idea of, I actually have studied enough to understand who's who, mostly, but not all of them, even after 50 years of the practice. And then it is really true that in Sōtō school, we received so much teaching from Dogen. So much so, our study is always focused on what the Dogen left with us. And it's so much so, we don't even have enough time in our lifetime to keep, reading Dogen's time. So therefore, barely none of us actually have time to study other ancestors' teaching. Isn't that right? So let's say, for instance, we all know Makakashapa because there's lots of story shows up in Dogen's writing too. Ananda, yes. But what about afterward? I can tell you very vaguely, but still, even someone who really spends so much time in, practice and study, I can just vaguely say, Nagarjuna, yes. Because these Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu are really epoch-making, very important figure. Not only our tradition, but Buddhism in general. These are supposed to be the very, very, important theologian, teacher, ancestor. Particularly Nagarjuna really changed from the foundation of our practice and understanding from ancient Buddhism into Mahayana Buddhism, and we still keep studying Nagarjuna. Yes, but what about those people in between? And Vasubandhu, yes, because Vasubandhu was also basically originator of Yogacara teaching, which is still very popular, and we sometimes make a reference to. But what about afterward? Yes, Bodhidharma, because it shows up so many times. But what about the people in between? Maybe Prajnapattara, because Prajnapattara shows up in Shoyoroku. Yes, Taiso Eka, because of that episode of cutting off the arm. It's very famous in the Zen story. But afterward, yeah, Daikan Eno, because he's the sixth ancestor. And then we have this biography sutra, platform sutra, which is always recommended for us to read and study, which I haven't done this in this group, but eventually we should be doing that. Sometimes I refer something from platform sutra. Sekto, Kisen, Yakuzan, maybe, Ungan Dojo, maybe, etc., etc. And then all the way down, yeah, Eihei Dogen, Tendo Nyojo, because currently, in this group, we are really trying to translate Hokyoki, the dialogue between, young Eihei Dogen, going to Song Dynasty China and meeting Tendo Nyojo. And so therefore, we got the idea what Tendo Nyojo taught. But after all, there are so many teachers, we really don't even have time to look into their teaching. So I thought, maybe I should spend some time. And then what I did was, we call ourselves as a Sōtō school, don't we? And then, do you know what the Sōtō school's Sōtō means? Sōtō school's Sō comes from Tōzan's name. Tōzan was Dharma heir of Tōzan. So, Sōtō school's Tō comes from Sōzan's teacher, Tōzan. So, Sōtō school's Tō is this guy, Tō. According to what we know retrospectively and historically, Sōzan, even though we say Sōtō school and place Sōzan's name at the beginning, what really happened was Tōzan was such influential teacher. And then Tōzan had so many disciples which just held his teaching on and on and on. So therefore, the next generation after Tōzan was basically like an ejo for Dogen. And they really spent their life to, maintain and also edit Tōzan's teaching. So therefore, I thought, well, Tōzan is the founder, so to speak, Sōtō school. So I should really study Tōzan's teaching. So what I did was I went into Tōzan Roku and then also discovered several really interesting books. You probably know this word Sodoshu. Sodoshu is the collection of the teacher of our ancestors. So in other words, there are other collection of the biographies and teachings of our ancestors. There are actually more than 1,300 of those people recorded. But many of those records was kind of re-edited toward the Song Dynasty China when mainstream of the Buddhism was leaned so much toward to Rinzai school. And Rinzai school was basically trying to present themselves, they are same as Taoism and Confucius thoughts. So therefore, it is really not the correct line of Buddhist teaching. So therefore, their reattachment or rehabishment or ornation, re-editing makes the original biography, original teaching a little blurred. So therefore, recently, all of us are paying attention to this collection called Sōtō, because Sōtō is way before. It's the first collection before anybody started to change for their own needs, political, social, financial needs. So Sōtō is very interesting. So if you go to Sōtō, you really go as close as possible to what these people really actually taught. I learned this from Okumura Roshi, and then also in Japan I have learned that many other scholastic priests and also academic people are paying lots of attention to Sōtō. So I acquired some of those books, and then I started to study Tōzan's teaching, and then I was really impressed. The reason is I mentioned how different we are from Rinzai school's way of question answer, and I think it's really laid. The foundation was laid all the way back from Tōzan's time. Tōzan's way of living and practicing together with his students is so kind of casual, and he's always really studying and working together with the students. So therefore, he's always going to the kitchen and going to the farm and going to this and going to this, so that he can always see and watch over how the students are doing. So he's really like a parent almost to the students. And so therefore, this is a very, occasion by occasion, not ceremonial, formatted conversation, but it's a very nice conversation. It's like the type of the really interesting conversation we may have in the kitchen, we may have in the farm, we may have in the groundwork, etc., etc. So you really see the foundation of our culture, even brought all the way down to Japan, even at this time. I felt how I experienced my teachers and seniors in the monastery in Japan is exactly like this. And I really saw, this is the origin. And also, this is really what we call koan, but it is really a portion of the dialogue which really talks about true reality found in the daily activities. And this also reminded me, I spent several years for Sama Ango when Okumura Roshi was the abbot of Sanshinji. I stayed there. And then it's such a wonderful experience because Sanshinji doesn't have really like a living quarter. And then they had several years holding the dormitories, but dormitory is very small, so they can only host limited numbers of the people. So in another word, you can actually monopolize your teacher most of the time. So what I did was, Okumura Roshi has his office, which is called Hojo, upstairs in second floor. And then right below his room, there was a room that used to be a library room. So during the day when he is studying, I intentionally, synchronize the time. and I go to this room and I do my own study, or sometimes I do help his transcription, etc., etc. So it's like I'm studying and transcribing right underneath, above me, above my head. Okumura Roshi is working intensively on his books and preparing his lecture. And then from time to time, he comes downstairs to get a cup of coffee and have a break, and he has to go through this room. So that's the time. If I have a question, I can just casually say, Roshi, do you have a minute? And then you can ask. And sometimes Okumura Roshi asks me, are you doing okay? Do you have any questions? Do you have anything to ask me? So it was really wonderful. So I really recognize, so actually this is the tradition, from Tōzan's time. And Tōzan does exactly the same thing. Recently, I keep telling this to the people who are on the way to Japan after the ordination. You might have heard about this, but together with other countries such as Italy, Japan is really like a leading figure of drastic decrease of the population. This has nothing to do with any kind of governmental policy. This is some sort of strange natural course of the decrease of population. In one way, I don't think it's a bad thing because we have too many people on this planet. So, but at the same time, it really starts to affect our society and the community. Currently, can you imagine this? 26% of the entire population of Japan is over 65 years old. And then average medium age range is 48 years old. Vis-a-vis some countries like in Africa, their medium age is 18. So they have a future, but Japan doesn't. So there are lots of, areas of the closures, including, the population who comes into Buddhist community is decreasing. So therefore, less and less and less numbers of the priests are born. So therefore, we originally at one point had more than 3 dozens of accrediting monasteries. We call this as a Sōtō. But they have decided to start to close down those regional Sōtōs, and then eventually they are looking at the future. We probably have only enough numbers of the people who will be gathering 2 main monasteries and one main nunneries. So therefore, there will be only Eiheiji and Sojiji and Nisōdo. It's currently run by Oyama Roshi. So that would be a very difficult time, particularly because non-Japanese folks, Europeans and Americans, enter the Buddha way much later. It's not like you are 8 years old and you are born into a temple family and you are supposed to become a Buddhist priest and get ordained. So therefore, if you are like 40 years old, 50 years old, sometimes 60 years old, and having to go to Japan and spend, at least 6 months to 2 years in the monastery, together with the 18-year-old kid who's very active physically, it's very difficult. So I always tell people, if you really want to do this, you should do as soon as possible before they close those regional temples. But regional Sōtō has been originally run with smaller numbers of the people. If you go to Eiheiji and Sojiji, at the height of that, they had 300 people. And then Okumura Roshi and Akiba Roshi tells me in their time, they still had over 100 people. And then, of course, both Sojiji and Eiheiji, they are very busy. For instance, Eiheiji receives thousands of visitors a day. So therefore, you have to have some sort of a department to take care of those visitors. And also, they are surrounded by huge numbers of Danka members. And of course, Danka members always have some sort of issues. And you always have to take care of those Danka members' needs and services and memorial services. And so, if you go to those really large monasteries, even though it's prestigious, you actually don't learn anything. So, interestingly, for centuries, traditionally, those regional smaller Sōtōs were the hub of the new discovery, new research of Dogen study, and these are the people who are like a major engine for Sōtō school to go on and go on to the right direction. So I'm wondering how this is going to, manifest in the tradition of this, daily activity, daily contact with your seniors and teachers, and you receive really wonderful teaching, one-on-one, in a very casual occasion out of your daily life. So I don't know how this is going to happen. So all of that made me think, at least I can make a little bit of effort to do something in this small group. So that's why we started this monthly Mondō. So, that was my intention. I don't know how this is going to manifest, but if you feel like this is really a good opportunity to have a more closer contact with the teaching and more casual contact with the teaching, and also not just the teaching, but get to know your group of the people and your seniors, juniors. And if you have somebody who you feel junior, this is a great opportunity for you to teach, what to teach and how to teach. So this whole thing about the communal living really gives that kind of opportunities for all of us to grow in our own role. I hope we can really deconstruct, so to speak, that atmosphere by offering this Mondō until something else, something a little better form is going to happen. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just starting to talk a little bit on the side portion, but I just want to show one, question and answer from Tōzan Roku, which really touched me. Now, let me open the shared screen. Hold on. Oh, sorry. Okay, there you go. I hope you can see. So Tōzan was somebody who lived 807 to 869. Tōzan Ryokai is Japanese pronunciation. As I say, please excuse my really bad Chinese pronunciation, but I try. Chinese translation is Donshan Linjie. The reason I also try to pronounce those Chinese words, Chinese names in Japanese pronunciation, partially because in my mind I'm sharing the writing, so therefore it's quite authentic, rather than giving wrong pronunciation and give you some sort of wrong idea of their name. So I always offer the original name. And also, I'm sure you really understand this because English and French, all of the language happens the same way. These are the people who lived in 9th century. How they pronounce words, how they pronounce their name, of course, changes. And then, Japanese received Chinese through China and through Korea, Buddhism, since, let's say, 700s. And then there's a wave of teaching brought over to Japan. First, it's Nara period, and then after that, there's a Heian period, then Kamakura period. Each period, they discovered many of those words were pronounced differently. So what we did was we decided to make the sound categorized. So it's very complicated for us to study Chinese text in Japanese because depending on when the text comes, we pronounce those texts differently, 5 different ways. So that's why I really don't want to confuse the people utilizing those pronunciation. So therefore, if I just pronounce these words and in names, Japanese phonetic sounds, it's just one thing. So therefore, his name is Tōzan Ryokai. So you can understand this is really quite ancient time. Maybe not to Europeans, but to Americans, it's a quite ancient time. And then interesting portion I discovered by studying Tōzan's teaching record is that, of course, it's kind of interesting. It didn't hit me until then. These people had this large monastery because their name just spread throughout the continent. Many people came to study with him, including people from Korea, including, surprisingly, people from Japan came all the way to Tang Dynasty, China, to seek for Tōzan's discipleship. So Tōzan's list of the heirs actually include one Japanese person. Hey, it's really not much discussed about. And then, so therefore, if you have a man who has like 800 to 1,000 people living together, of course, some people get sick. And this time, of course, treatment of the illness was difficult. So of course, there will be some people who will die in the monastery. So they have kind of quickly discovered this once this monastery system was established. So by the time of Tōzan's time, this is the height of Chinese Buddhism. So therefore, they have actually started to establish a particular segment of the temple. It's a bit like an invalid, in the sense. So this is a hospital, but also hospice segment. And those are called, in Tōzan's place, it is called Enju-do. It's very interesting. Do is hall. So just imagine, have you ever been to any of those older hospital which was built pre-war time? I have. When I was doing an internship in San Francisco and Frank Ostrowski, Zen Hospice project was approached by this large, huge hospital called Laguna Honda Hospital in San Francisco. It's a beautiful building. It's built on the top of the hill, one of those San Francisco hill, and it's painted in pink. So first time I went to see Laguna Honda Hospital from afar, I thought, wow, this is like a Royal Hawaiian Hotel in Honolulu, Hawaii. But then when you enter it, you realize, oh, it's before the renovation, so therefore they still have this, completely open floor. And then what, divides those open bed is just a curtain. It's a partition curtain. But it's just a line after line after line after line of this huge room. Beds are just laid out. Imagine something like that in 9th century China. Huge hall, exposed pillars, and then there's a futon mattress, or probably it is in China, so there's a tan, and on the top of the tan, there's a roll of, cushions and stuff. And then all of them is covered by young monks who are sick or possibly dying. So Enju prolonging this given life, whole of prolonging the life. And then other very large monastery also had something similar. And then I checked the name of it, and the names are so interesting. Some monastery called this as Shosokuin. Basically, it's recipient hall. Shōgyoin, it's also convalescence, maybe. And then another one called Mujodo, impermanence, hall of impermanence, which definitely shows many patients, basically hospice patients, in another word. And then Nehando, this is also quite suggestive. Nehan is nirvana. Nirvana is blowout, particularly in this case, it's a physical blowout. So I started to have this really clear image. Wow, so Originally, when you're studying those koans and biography and stuff, you really didn't pay attention to that element. Yes, of course, it's an entire life scope. People come in, people study, and people may graduate, but some people may get sick and people may die. This is the entire life scope is in this monastery that has 800 to 1,000 people population in it. It's like a small country, small society. It's like a miniature universe going on. And in that, quite a few numbers of question and answer is recorded, which means Tōzan often visited those people who are sick and people who are dying as well. I thought this was wonderful because in some cases, once monks get sick and goes to those invalid hospital, shall we say, they don't really pay attention to those people. But Tōzan's case, Tōzan covers every entire scope, including these, monks. So this is the conversation listed in Sōdōshū. I haven't had a chance to translate properly, and then also, as you know, this brief conversation dialogue sounds like a riddle unless you know the context. So first I'm going to read this. Tōzan comes to Enjudo and found one of the monks he knew got seriously, gravely ill. So he decided to visit him and then goes to his bedside and he says, "How are you doing, dear one?" This dear one is a translation, my translation of this word, jali. In Chinese, how you speak to somebody, let's say in current American English, somebody says, "Hey buddy," or "Hi dude," something like that. That's supposed to be among the men, kind of showing the sense of intimacy and friendship, yeah? In Chinese language of that type, this word, you call someone, this is intimacy and also care. So instead of this high priest going to this very young boy saying something, when he used this word, jali is very respectful. So it really already, with this just one word, shows the temperament and characteristic who Tōzan was. So I thought this was really like opening word. Like I was like, whoa. And then next one, teacher, this student says, just imagine this student is most possibly gravely ill. But then because of the respect he has for Tōzan, he tries somehow, maybe he probably tries to sit up a little bit. And then out of this almost like running out breath, he tries to say something. And then he says, "Shoji jidai sensei," which means life, death is a great matter, teacher. What it means is, I came here to clarify the great matter of life, death. But unfortunately, I haven't, reached the clarification, and then I got sick and I have to die. So it's really, how do you say, statement of regrets, remorse, and then say disappointment about his own, illness, and he probably felt quite fatalistic at this time. And then to that, one word is given as an answer, and he says, どうして阿波の畑に行かないのかな? That's my Japanese translation of this Chinese original. This is my translation, so it's a little strange, and I haven't really run this through with Michelle. It says, "You become a grain of millet in the newly cultivated field." I just have to explain this. At that time in China, because this is a remote mountains very often, and then this mountain is the site of this large monastery, right? And then therefore, large monastery have to feed those people, 800 people, 1,000 people. You cannot depend on any kind of donation. So therefore, you have to work. So you create all these fields for rice paddies and vegetable field and etc. by yourself. And then rice grows really rapidly in India, but in the monsoon areas such as China to Japan, rice cultivation is quite difficult, and you can only crop only once a year. And so it also requires a lot of, irrigation, water, etc., work. So therefore, in many cases, if you have large numbers of the people, you couldn't feed everybody with rice. So therefore, they had to supplement with something that grows faster and then also equally nutritious. So at that time, they really went for millet. Until, I believe, 1940s, Japanese people also did that when someone's not really wealthy enough to buy rice all the time. And currently, for the health boom, it's kind of back to include millet into rice, etc. It's not that bad, but it doesn't really taste as good as rice. But anyway, the point is, millet is very active and young and energetic, and it grows so fast, and it feeds and nourishes the monks. So imagine outside of this hospital bed, there's a field after field after field dedicated to rice and millet, and then they are probably looking toward it, and then he says, you become a grain of millet in the newly cultivated field. And probably they keep on cultivating the land on and on and on, and then probably right in front of the invalid, there was a newly cultivated land. Do you understand the significance of this? Isn't this wonderful? So, as this is a written dialogue, there's not the moment of visualization, but you can kind of visualize listening to that. This, monk felt so relieved and so kind of nourished by his word. So he says, so I am very glad. And then afterward, the record says, shortly after, the monk died quietly. This is a very short, conversation, but I thought this was so, completely represents how Tōzan was. Recently, I went through a kind of difficult moment of my health issue, and then what happened was I had this genetic condition of basically deterioration of my spine. And of course, this is something in a minor sense happens to many, many people who are aging. But in my case, it really started to happen much earlier. And then I was trying to hold on to by paying attention to nutrition and exercise and etc., etc. But it started to be accelerated by my own aging process as well. So by the time I went to see the doctor, my doctor alarmed me that you came almost like a narrow escape. You should have come a little earlier. But if you don't do anything right away, I can tell you very clearly, you would soon start to lose the ability to walk. So in other words, I will use the ambulatory, skill. And then the process would be very painful. And then at this point, there's no other option but going through this spine reconstruction surgery. So, of course, I thought of this, should I really go for this? And maybe it's okay because I have already surpassed my parents' age, and I really felt I didn't even have the gene to go over 69 years old. So it's already a given life, so maybe it's okay. I'd rather not to go through this painful process, etc., etc. But then I was encouraged by information given to the doctors and care teams and how technically they are so advanced. Even though the process will not be painless, as a matter of fact, that's their way of telling me you have to really determine that you have to go through some level of the pains, etc., etc. But we will be doing our best so that you don't have to suffer too much. So anyway, I went through that, and then I came out of it, and then I didn't want to make Okumura Roshi, my teacher, worry too much. So I didn't really explain as much I should have. So couple of weeks ago, I finally came to, feeling, oh, it's probably okay now because it's aftermath. So I will let Okumura Roshi know what exactly happened. And then to do so, I sent out my X-ray picture to explain what it was. And I mentioned, if you don't feel it's too gross, it visually explains what I went through, so please take a look. And of course, I sent it as an attachment by email. And he sent me back email almost right away, and he said he saw it. And he says, it's quite amazing. You have like a Captain America or Frankenstein kind of new body. I have a new spine made out of titanium now. And then my doctor told me, don't worry about breaking this new spine because it's so strong. Unless you are hit by and crushed by automobile or something, your spine is still okay. So anyway, he said, it's clearly showing that, we live entirely all the time. This is the given life. Now we know that, we all study Buddhism and we really start to see the true reality of how this being actually functions. Now, and then you come to this really strong sense of gratitude because we are actually made to live by this entire connection, by this entire universe is actually supporting this. So therefore, we often call this as ikasareteiru in Japanese. Instead of I live, I'm made to live or led to live, ikasareteiru, but in a very positive expression. So Okumura Roshi says, now it really shows even more that you are ikasareteiru, and also ikasareteiru life, given life is even extended. So this is the time you are given, as an extension of the time given, you should really continue to devote entirely into Buddha Dharma, as well as I try. So I thought this was really, great encouragement. So currently, I'm kind of refreshing my own vow, and I really like to, whatever years I was given as an extension, I really like to keep devoting to the Dharma. But this given life, prolonged life is Enju, the name of that hall, name of that hospital in Tōzan's life. So, how do you use your life? And then this young man used his life trying to devote himself into the Dharma. But now he's going to die. But at the same time, him being in the monastery is also gives the monastery, gives Tōzan, gives his colleagues, his fellow students, also teachings. And also his own being actually became the foundation for the next future. So that's the conversation. So yes, your life is gone, but your life is now as and the next moment of nutrition for the next generation to come. So in other words, your life is going to go on as a part of the next generation. So this is the word Tōzan is giving to this young man. So of course this young man really starts to feel, yeah, that is really right. according to what we have studied and what we learned and what we clarified, we were not born, and therefore we are not dead. And then just, you know, how do you say, this momentary manifestation for entire network eventually started to create this sense of life, but then this sense of life is continuously changing. And then when you say you die, you're actually not dying, and then it just really goes much back into other elements, into the entirety. This entirety has no intake, no leaving. It's always here. It's just a relationship or interdependency changes and keeps manifesting this and this and this and that. So the element that was a young monk dissolves, but still it merges into the entirety, and then it actually functions as an energy to sustain, keep on, develop these teachings. So that was such a really interesting, you know, conversation, and particularly it feels very strongly to me. I mentioned last fall and winter, I had this great opportunity to travel with a French-speaking group and Italian-speaking group in Japan. And one of the days, I kind of missed the opportunity to join the group, and I had a half day all to myself before I meet the group. And then it was in Kyoto. So I decided to go visit the temple I really wanted to for a long time, but never had a chance. This temple is called Chijakuin. Currently, people don't know much about this temple, but this temple used to be a huge Buddhist university. I think it was one generation before Dogen, for several hundred years. At that time, in Japan, there were Buddhist university who was not divided by denomination. So therefore, whatever schools, whatever sects of the Buddhism you may be ordained with can come to this Chijakuin and stay there, live there. It's a dormitory system, of course, as it's temple. And then you can spend all day receiving lectures from this teacher and that teacher. And of course, this was hundreds of people, close to 1,000 people living in this temple. Just like Tōzan's temple, this place also had a hospice. So interesting thing about this temple, Chijakuin, is that generation after generation, they have young monks who didn't quite able to graduate. In the midst of their aspiration, they somehow acquired illness and died, unfortunately. But they decided to commemorate them. So therefore, behind this main structure, which used to be a huge lecture hall that carries hundreds of people in several different rooms, right behind, they decided to create the cemetery. So I went to see them. It's like line after line after line after all the way to the top of the hill. It's all the lines of these young monks who died there. But somehow, you know, many of those stones doesn't even carry the name or rank or honorifics because they were so young when they died. So they didn't even come to any kind of a level of receiving the names, receiving the certificates, etc., etc. So it just simply says something like a two kanji word. So that really obviously includes like teenagers. But the thing is, this whole, you know, monastery, lines by lines, is really like a foundation of this huge lecture hall. And of course, besides that, there are many of people really graduated and went to so many places throughout Japan and kept on teaching the Dharma. In another word, 1,000 years later, the reason why we keep receiving this correct line of the teaching is also, supported and funded by these young people who died in the midst of their aspiration. So I think this Chijakuin was really a great inspiration for me. Tōzan's teaching is quite interesting. Someday I really like to offer you a little more. And Tōzan's Mondō, you can even categorize Mondō in the hospice, Mondō in the field work, Mondō in such and such. And particularly as someone who spent so many time in the hospice, I'm really impressed with how, Tōzan functions as a chaplain, so to speak. He's like a real good example of the chaplain. I wish I had known this when I was still actively working. So for younger generation who you are, maybe it is a good idea to study Tōzan's teaching someday. Anyway, that's Mondō. That's why I really wanted to, go on and on and on about explaining this clear nature of Mondō. It's not like a ritualistic, like, look at me, I know so much, and then teacher said, you don't know, I know better, kind of, demonstration. It is much, much real. It comes from your real experience of your real life, and come out of that, you really take the true teaching out of it. And also, you keep developing the skill to take the teaching out, and also offering that teaching to the people who are in need. So let's see how this Mondō goes in chapter 10 with the symbol of, wisdom, Mañjuśrī, conducting. Let's see. The first one I like to take is Mondō number 3. Mondō number 3 starts towards the end of page 301. Okay, let me bring this closer to me. And if you do have your textbook together with you, please read it with me. As this is a recording which will be posted for the public use, just in case I'm going to read question and answer first. At that time, Mañjuśrī Bodhisattva asked, foremost jewel Bodhisattva, son of the Buddha, all the beings are alike in their possession of the 4 great elements and in not having a self or anything belonging to a self. How then is it that there are those who experience suffering, those who experience bliss, those who are of fine appearance, those who are ugly, those who are inwardly good, those who are outwardly good, those who receive but little, those who receive much, with some of them undergoing retribution in the present life, others undergoing retribution in later lives, even as within the Dharma realm there is neither beauty nor ugliness. Do you understand the question? The question is about good and bad. In Dharma there is neither good and bad, but what do you do in your life? Something manifests and you feel lucky, unlucky, failure, success, good, bad, beautiful, ugly. When that happens to you, how do you take that? Is the answer question. It's a very important question. It's actually really like hitting the essential pivot portion of the Buddha's teaching. And then we actually have lots of teaching through not only Mahayana Buddhism, but all the way to, I really don't like to use the word, but koans, and also Dogen's teaching. In this case, answer is, at that time, foremost jewel Bodhisattva responded with verses. It is in accordance with the karmic actions one performs that just such corresponding retributions arise, even though, as he been taught by all Buddhas, no agent of actions exists at all. It is as if there are clean, bright mirror that in accordance with whatever appeared before it, manifested the image that in each case differed. So too it is with the nature of karmic action. This is really beautiful. I think, I'm just thinking about this particular incredible fascicle in Shobogenzo Dogen wrote, Kokyo, Old Mirror. This mirror image is in sync with this, writing. When you first introduced to Mozart, you feel, how this happened? Wasn't Mozart like coming from is he an alien? How did he come up with this composition? But then when you really study the history, you really see, oh, actually he's also a creation and a product of all this development from here and here and here. And of course, it's interrelated origination, then created Mozart. Just like Dogen, when I first started to read Dogen, I started to say, what happened? Is he alien? But at the same time, when you really started to, study preceding time of correct teaching, you really start to see, that's right, Dogen must have got the inspiration from here and from here. And then he's, of course, developing his expression into much deeper. But yes, you see the origin of the idea. I go on a little more. It is also as if there are field and seas, each of which had no mutual knowledge of the others, even as they were naturally able to generate growth. So too it is with the nature of karmic actions. It is also as if there was a skillful conjurer who was staying at the crossroads, manifesting many kinds of forms and appearances. So too it is with the nature of karmic actions. It is just as if there were a marionette which was able to emit various sounds in which there was neither any self nor non-self. So too it is with the nature of karmic actions. And these karmic actions, you can probably read it as interdependent origination. Or yesterday we met for Hokyoki's translation, and in this case, for those of you who are involved with that, you can read it as causality, law of causation, or inga. Yes. Let's see. It is also just as it is with the many sorts of birds, which, although they all come forth from eggs, each make sounds which differ from those of the others. So too it is with the nature of karmic actions. It is just as within the womb all the sense faculties reach complete development, even as the physical features have no place from which they came. So too it is with the nature of karmic actions. It is also just as in the hells, there are many different kinds of suffering circumstances in which none of them have any place from which they came. So too it is with the nature of karmic actions. This is analogous to the circumstance to a wheel-turning king, fully endowed with his 7 supreme treasures, none of which has any place of origin one could ever find. So too it is with the nature of karmic actions. This is also like the situation in all worlds, which are all bound to be burnt up by the great conflagration, even as those fires have no place from which they come. So too it is with the nature of karmic actions. Great answer. But I really like to rephrase the answer into a couple of very familiar texts you already have, you already know. And then you can actually really come to the point like, oh, okay, I got it. The first one is Kanchi Sōsan's story. In case you don't have this book, I wrote it down on the note, but I just want to introduce this. This is the record of a transmission of illumination by great ancestor Zen master Keizan. It's a Keizan's re-editing of Chinese transmission record. Transmission record is the word they prefer to use, but I would say it's a biography of our ancestors. And this biography has the style to talk about where they come from and how they meet the Dharma, and then meet the correct teacher. And on the process of that, they had this dialogue, After he was fully transmitted and became his own, abbot of his own temple, and he had this conversation with his students, and this way. This dialogue is usually the type of the dialogue. It's a very pivotal moment of their life. All of us have a pivotal moment in our life, don't you? There's a moment of experience, the type of the event that happens, it has a huge impact in your life. And somehow, at that time, you may not really feel the huge impact, but retrospectively, you really did understand, because of that event, because of the dialogue, my life now I can see, changed into this way. And those are the moment, in this case, the moment of enlightenment, so to speak, moment of clarification and verification and awakening. So this is the type of the record, type of the biography, lists up those moments of dialogue that really brought the moment of clarification. It's very interesting. And then Keizan actually rewrote this dialogue and then extended into all the way to Dogen, of course. So this is regarded as three most important texts Sōtō school carries ever since medieval time. So of course, one of them is Shōbo Genzo, and then second is this. Third one is our own, standard of our, how we do what we do, etc., etc. So therefore, 25 years ago, when Sōtō school basically established international division and then translation division, they picked up those three books and then went into nearly 20 years long process of translation. And this one came out, the second one. The last one was, of course, Shōbo Genzo. It took much longer. And this came out about, what shall we say, do you remember, Michelle? Like 5 years ago, I think. And then at that time, Sōtō school asked all of those Zen centers throughout America and throughout, including North America, South America, and Europe, who is functioning under the name of Sōtō school, please have one in your library. So depending on where you are practicing with, you probably know this book. Now, in this book, I think I have time to do this. There's a teacher whose name is Kanchi Sōsan. Kanchi Sōsan is starting from Makakashapa. He's 30th ancestor. So if you do have this book, by the way, this book is available by free downloading, even though you cannot really use it because it has a, crossing on the top of the page. So commercial usage is prohibited. But for the personal usage, you can go to a Sōtō school's website and it's offered. I usually prefer hard copy because it's easier for me to work on, but you don't have to. It's very heavy, but you can see it. So if you do use the electric version, go to chapter 30. And this is the, by the way, I wrote it down in case this is the first time you ever heard about this. Kanchi Sōsan, Chinese pronunciation, though I try, Jianzi Xinkan, was someone we really don't know his years. we really, many of our previous scholastic teachers did the entire search, but we still don't know when exactly he was born and he died. So therefore, we do even have a speculation. Maybe he was a made-up person. It's like a legendary kind of, we all know Bodhidharma is not the real historical person by now. But it doesn't matter. What really matters is the type of the teaching left to us has really strong meaning. So therefore, it doesn't matter if those historic person, whatever it is, and who actually created this teaching, because the teaching is so profound and correct. So you might have heard about this. So first portion, it says, I don't know if this is showing. Is it showing on the screen? Is it okay? So 30th ancestor, great master, Kanji Sōsan, went to inquire the 29th ancestor, Eka. Eka is Hyuke. He's the guy who became the successor of Buddha Dharma. To do so, because Buddha Dharma wasn't particularly interested, he really had to show his intention. I'm really serious. So much so, I show it to you. And then he cut down his, arm. And then looking at that, Bodhidharma really was convinced, yeah, he's really serious. Of course, this is, I think, made up Zen story. But this is really like, I don't know if you really ever felt like that. At one point, I was so frustrated about finding a correct teacher. And that type of frustration I used to have within my body really had that kind of energy. So when I read that story, I really relate to it. Of course, I didn't cut down my but I also spent all of those my vacation days, and I spent entire savings, etc., to travel around all over the places. I was really serious. So in my way, I was cutting my arm off. So that man now teaches to this man, Kanji Sōsan. And he says, oh, by the way, you probably already know this. Kanji Sōsan is traditionally said to be somebody who was affected by Hansen's disease. So he had telepathy. So he says, my body is afflicted with a contagious disease. Sir, please help me to repent my sins. Eka, oh, by the way, this repent my sins, probably you feel a little strange because of the translation. In those days, they believed when you get some kind of tragic disease, you probably had some kind of a bad nature, within you. And then, so therefore, you go to some sage, and then sage will conduct. It's almost like a black magic. You do like, you take those bad nature out, and then you are healed. I think something like this happens even now in 21st century modern age. At least some people believe in that. And then, so therefore, he, has heard about this man is supposed to be like a sacred man. So he goes to him and he says, and he said that. And then Eka says, okay, this is very, Gautama Buddha's way. Okay, I'll do it. But there's one condition. Bring me your sins. Then I will allow you repentance. Meaning, bring me that badness, the core of this evilness. And then in front of that, to that, I will try to do this ritual for taking that out. And then Kanji, obviously, had some sort of gift of Dharma by that time, paused. He thought, okay. He thought and thought and thought, had a long pause, and then said, I have searched for my sins, but cannot obtain them. Obtain them is their way of expression of, if there's some kind of substance, something statically existing, then you can take and get it and show it. But you can't do that in this case. Initially, he thought there was something like that causing this Hansen's disease, causing this misery and suffering. But he just couldn't find it as a substance. So therefore, you can't obtain it, grasp it, and take it. And then Eka says, I have finished giving you the right of repentance now. Now, what you should do, you should take refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha and dwell with him. Which means, you clarified so much so, now you really should become a Buddhist priest and then devote your life into Dhamma. Do you understand? I think this is really wonderful, typical of that. We often feel this is bad, this is good, but who decided this is bad and this is good? You did. So if you really clearly understand this moment by moment by moment by moment of this manifestation is just a momentary manifestation of what it isness, this immeasurable. You just can't figure out what caused it because it has immeasurable numbers of causes, and then it just manifests momentarily, this and this and this and that. And it's just that. It's neither good or bad or ugly or beautiful. You think so. And of course, what you think is always changing. So therefore, what it is what it is. If you don't decide it is bad, it's not bad. It's just what it is. If you don't decide this is good and then you puff yourself up, if you don't do that, it's just you, it's just this. So that's the teaching. And then when you really start to recognize that, now it's time for you to heal others. It's 10:30. I was going to offer 2 more examples you are very familiar with. One of them is, of course, Hyakujo's old fox story. And that's like a typical of that. Really hits the pivotal moment of Buddha's teaching. And particularly, it's a very interesting teaching. And it's a really clear teaching about the space and time. In another word, life and also life experience. And also another one is some writing called the Shoaku Makusa, Do No Evil, from Shobo Genzo, which we spent nearly 8 months to examine line by line. That is also a typical, teaching of this line of the teaching, and also almost in sync completely with this question and answer. Anyway, we need a coffee break. I think all of us need a caffeinated beverage infusion. So I'll see you in 30 minutes. Okay. I have to log off, so please log off and log in again. We start at 11 o'clock sharp. Thank you very much.